Bill Gates has been secretly buying up all the farmland across America and is now the largest farmland owner in the United States. Now, it's raising a lot of eyebrows. It's raising even more conspiracy theories. So in this video, I want to break down what he's doing. We're going to look at why he's doing it, how history predicted this to happen, and then, of course, most importantly, what we should be doing about this now to protect our own wealth and our future. Now, this is moving into a world where the rich are buying everything up, and we need to protect ourselves, so stay tuned. All right, welcome back. If you're new to the channel, my name is Mark Moss, and I believe that having wealth gives us freedom. And by studying history and comparing it to the current situations, it gives us a unique outlook into how we should be moving and responding in order to survive and thrive what comes next. Now, if you like these topics and you want to help me get these topics to more people, just take a quick second, click that like button right now to help the algorithm send it to more people. And of course, hit the subscribe button and the bell notification if you're not already subscribed. Now, just real fast on a quick note, if you don't make it to the end of the video, I am giving an encore of the free training I put together at the first week of January. It got such amazing, overwhelming response, reviews. I decided to bring it back one more time. You can look at the link in the description. There's 3 videos of pure training that you need to start 2021 the right way. A link is in the description down below. All right, now getting right into it. So today we're talking about Bill Gates. He's buying up farmland. And I know I talk about living on the beach. I talk about living a surfer's lifestyle. I moved to Puerto Rico. I'm on an island right now. But you may not know that I'm not that far removed from the farm. As a matter of fact, my grandfather was a farmer in Iowa. My father and my siblings and his siblings all grew up working on a farm. When I was a kid, I used to go to Iowa at least once a year, visiting the farm, and I was even put to work on the farm several times. If you know anything about the farm, I had to walk the beans, as they said. Now, back to Bill Gates. Now, Bill Gates may no longer be the world's richest man. I think he's dropped down to like number 4 or something like that, but he can claim a brand new title, and that is America's Farmland King. Now, he's become the largest owner of farmland in the United States, and he owns over 242,000 acres of farmland. Now, he owns 27,000 acres of other land across 19 states, but Bill Gates is the largest farmland owner. However, he's not the largest landowner, just farmland. Now, actually, the largest landowners are way bigger than Bill Gates. So the largest landowner in the U.S. is John Malone. He owns a massive 2.2 million acres. As a matter of fact, the top 8 largest landowners have over 1 million acres each. But don't count out Jeff Bezos. He's not in the top 8 yet, but he is trying to get his name added to that list. He doesn't want to be outdone by Bill Gates, obviously, and so he actually owns twice as much land as Bill Gates, but it's not farmland. But he does own 420,000 acres with his name on it. But today, we're talking about farmland because, as you might have guessed, whoever controls the farmland controls the food, and whoever controls the food controls the people. Now, there is a famous quote from Henry Kissinger where he said, quote, "Control oil and you control nations. Control food and you control the people." What a powerful quote, and it explains it perfectly. But let me give you a little bit of perspective, as I always like to do. According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture in 2018, based off of how much farmland they say is available, Bill Gates owns about 30% of it now. But the real question is, why? Why are the rich buying it? Now, land is probably the oldest asset in human history. Corporations can always offer more stock. Governments can always issue more bonds. But there's only one asset that's had a fixed supply on Earth for the last several million years, and that is land. Now, as we look back through history, we can see that the rich and the elite, that buying up farmland always comes at the end of an empire. And this is why the rich buying up the farmland today rings some alarm bells to me. And this is why I want to report on this. And of course, there's many parallels I've talked about many times, parallel stories of the late Roman Empire and the United States. But one interesting analog is what happened with farmland in Rome. And it's what accelerated the end was that people started losing their land to the rich. And of course, history always repeats over and over and over and again. In volume 3 of the monumental story of civilization, titled Caesar and Christ, author Will Durant gives us details into the rise and fall of the Roman Empire. And I'm going to quote him. He said, "Many others found their holdings so damaged by armies or neglect that they had not the courage to begin anew. Others were broken by accumulated debt. Such men sold their lands at depression prices to aristocrats of agriculture capitalists who merged the little homesteads into latifundia, which literally means broad farms. This process, already underway in the 4th century BC, had by the end of the 3rd produced a debt-ridden tenant class in the countryside, and in the capital, a propertyless, rootless proletariat whose sullen discomfort would destroy the republic. End quote. So that right there tells us what we're talking about. Again, history repeats. Now, you might not also realize that the rich elite buying up the land, and specifically the farmland, falls right into the World Economic Forum's agenda for 2030. Now, it's kind of ironic that while billionaires are acquiring land, they appear to be telling us being the general public, that in the future, private property is going to virtually cease to exist. The World Economic Forum founder Klaus Schwab made it clear in his book. He wrote 2 books, The Fourth Industrial Revolution and then, of course, The Great Reset, which basically says will lead to the abolition of private property. Of course, on the World Economic Forum's official website, it states, "Welcome to the year 2030, welcome to my city," or should I say, our city. I don't own anything. Now, apparently, you won't be allowed to own any private property. Instead, you'll be dependent on a small number of elitists who own everything. Now, that used to be called feudalism, which is basically a form of slavery. Now, anyway, the reason why he is buying it is unknown. All right, we don't know that. He hasn't come out and publicly said anything, and so no one really knows why Bill Gates is buying up all the farmland. But when looking at his past moves, it's easy to start to see some scary sense of what he might be trying to do. So in 2008, the Gates Foundation announced $300 million in grants to promote high-yield sustainable agriculture in sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia. Now, the foundations invest in the development of proliferation of super crops that are resistant to climate change, also higher yield dairy cows. Of course, what all this means is genetically modifying both the food and the animals. But I don't want to go into all that. All right, that's not what we're talking about today. While it's easy to dive into dark conspiracies, sometimes I believe that the real reasons are oftentimes just the most simple. And so we don't need to go into all that. Let's look at the most simple. And that is, in a world where fake fiat money is being created in larger quantities than we've ever seen in history, it's pushing people to buy real, hard, tangible assets. I talk about this all the time. Now, they do that in order to protect their wealth, and they have to diversify their assets out of the fake fiat currency to buy assets with real scarcity. Now, as the saying goes, quote, "They ain't making any more land," and so the rich are always focusing on protecting their wealth, as we all should be, of course, right? This is nothing new. Now, according to a report in 1994, a long time ago, Bill Gates hired an investment manager to diversify the portfolio away from the Microsoft co-founder's 45% stake in the technology giant. So much of his wealth was wrapped up in the stock. He hired an investment manager to help him diversify his portfolio back in 1994. And this started, right? And this led to the accumulation of the land that we're seeing today. In 2014, the Wall Street Journal reported that Gates' land investments then totaled up to some 100,000 acres. And it's not just Gates that's doing this. In an article in Forbes in 2019, it showed why money managers are moving into farmland and how Wall Street investors are buying it up for their clients' portfolios. So the facts that we can see show us that as an investment, farmland has a really good return over the last 50 years. The land has seen growth of about 6 to 8% per year, not bad for land, and since 1991, it's returned 11.5%, which may not sound like a lot if you're chasing cryptocurrency returns, so maybe some of you, but again, for some perspective, it's outperformed every other asset class except Bitcoin, which is of course another scarce asset. And so the market is basically responding. You can see that diversifying your portfolio into holding scarce assets, it's paying off. The rich are diversifying their assets into more scarce assets, and it's giving them this low correlation to the markets, so the returns don't move with stocks. That's what you want. And they want something that works as an inflation hedge, as a real asset that's producing commodities, of course, which farmland is. And it has a very low volatility, and it's provided returns that have been less volatile than any other asset. And of course, I always say that, quote, "success leaves clues," which means we should be copying the successful moves of others. And so if the rich are moving their wealth into scarce assets, shouldn't we be doing the same? Now, this means that we should be diversifying our holdings just like they are, and we should consider buying scarce assets, and even specifically productive farmland. Now, most of you know by now that I just moved to Puerto Rico, and I moved here at the first of the year, which of course it's just a small, beautiful island in the Caribbean, and it's got some amazing beaches, but there's only a few surf breaks here. And I found one of the last pieces of land left on one of the best surf breaks, and I just put an offer in on it yesterday with the goal of putting a productive asset, a scarce asset, and then putting a productive asset on top of it, which would be a vacation rental, because if farmland is scarce, well, prime beachfront land is even way more scarce. So I'm doing it, and if you really want to copy the rich like Bill Gates and buy up farmland, well, it's actually easier than you might imagine. And no, you don't have to move out to Iowa where my grandfather is and put on the overalls and drive a tractor. Instead, you can buy farmland directly, or you can buy it to diversify your portfolio in a pretty easy, simple way, just through an ETF or an RIET, a REIT. You can do it with a one click. Now, a couple that I'm not necessarily suggesting, but we have like Farmland Partners, FPI. It's almost doubled in the last 60 days. Gladstone Land Corp is LAND. It's also near all-time highs right now. And as I quoted the old saying before, right, they aren't making any more land. If you want to know how the rich and professional investors are really accelerating their wealth right now during the pandemic, when most people are losing it all, then come see my free training that opens back up again today. The link is in the description down below. All right. Otherwise, let me know what you think. Would you diversify into some productive land or farmland specifically? Give me a yes or a no if you would consider that, even if it's one of those one-click ETF or REITs that are available. Otherwise, give me a thumbs up on this video if you like it. If you don't like the video, give me a thumbs down. Of course, I don't know why, but leave me a comment and tell me why. I try to answer all the questions and comments that I can, and that's what I got for you today, all right? To your success. I'm out.